Alright kids, today we're going to learn about the Spanish-American War. This is a very short lecture. You do not have an outline notes for these, the fill-in-the-blank notes for these, so you're going to have to write them down yourself in your notebook. I will be checking these, so be sure that you get them done. And this shouldn't take very long. It's only 9 slides here. In fact, actually, mine is 4, so only about 5 slides with actually written material on it. Okay, all right, let's get started. All right, Spanish-American War, US2, 5A. The Spanish-American War was a very, very short war. Only lasted about a month, a little more of actual fighting. Only about a couple weeks of actual fighting. It was nicknamed the Splendid Little War because it resulted in a number of things. The United States became a world power. This is our first war against a European nation since the War of 1812. And this is the first war that we've had, an actual war with another nation. That we had since the Civil War. So the idea was it did unify the United States. It also made the United States a world power. So we're going to study two things. What were the reasons for the Spanish-American War, and what were the results? Okay, this is a typical cause and effect type of lesson. Reasons for, results of. Reasons for. There's a couple reasons. The first reason is to protect American business interests in Cuba. We actually had interest in sugarcane plantations in Cuba. We had a lot of U.S. businesses running sugarcane plantations there, and Cuba was a Spanish colony, and the Cubans didn't want the Spanish to be controlling their colony. They wanted independence, so they had a war against Spain. A little guerrilla war that went on for a number of years, and during this war, the sugarcane production went down. So the United States had an interest of ending the Spanish-American War to secure our business interests in Cuba. The U.S. did also supported the Cuban rebels from their independence because they were trying to gain independence from a European power. It means a country in the Western Hemisphere who wants independence from a European power, no different than the United States and wanting independence from Great Britain. And the United States did relate to the Cuban rebels. The next was there was a ship that we had docked in Havana Harbor called the USS Maine. It was there to try. Americans were getting concerned about what was going on in Cuba, and to address our concerns, we brought in a battleship from Norfolk to Cuba, to Havana Harbor, and it was docked there, and it was observing, and then there was an explosion. And a lot of people contributed the explosion to a Spanish torpedo and artillery shot. But after later investigation, the explosion was actually accidental from sailor error. But the story of a Spanish attack on the USS Maine was a better story than an accident. And what you had during this time was a time period. You had a lot of your newspapers didn't really practice good journalism. In fact, instead they practiced something called yellow journalism. So when you take a kernel of truth and you exaggerate it. Yes, the USS Maine blew up, but a better story would be the USS Maine was attacked by a Spanish ship or a Spanish torpedo or a mine. And then that sounds like a better story than if it was just an accident. And that was what yellow journalism did. And yellow journalists really fueled America's fury against Spain before this war. So results. So the war lasted. The war ended very quickly. We had two different fronts. So we had battles in Cuba, battles in Puerto Rico, and we also had battles in the Philippines. And the end result is that Spain had to pay us a bunch of money But Spain couldn't afford to pay the United States the war reparations. So instead, they exchanged lands. And what this did was make the United States a world power, because the other countries in the world all were world powers because they controlled lands outside their borders, and they controlled colonies. And at this point, the United States now controls colonies. And so we emerge as a world power. Cuba gains independence from Spain. We couldn't take Cuba. Cuba had to get independence because we fought, because we supported for Cuban independence. Now they did have independence. However, it was kind of a independence under the terms of the United States. They had to be trade partners with the U.S. and allow us to continue our sugarcane production. That made the businessmen in the United States very happy. U.S. gains these possessions: Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico. Philippines, Guam, and Puerto Rico. We still control Guam, and we still control Puerto Rico. Guam is a very tiny island in the Pacific. Puerto Rico is a small island within the Caribbean, and the Philippines are a collection of islands that we know in the South China Sea. And these three tiny little specks on Earth become incredibly important, as we're going to talk about in class later, because it gives the United States a tremendous amount of power. I mean, you have countries that control all of French Indonesia or all of Africa, or large countries like India, and we become a significant world power because we gained these three island nations. It's kind of incredible. And what we'll talk about next class will be Roosevelt's foreign policy. We're going to do Roosevelt's foreign policy and move right on to World War I. And then we are caught up. Okay, so that is, I told you, very quick notes here. Remember, you're supposed to write them down in your notes. Please answer the question in the modal prompt. It is regarding the United States as a world power. We're going to make some predictions of why these three countries made the United States an incredible world power. All right, have a good day.